Hi. Okay, how are you doing? I hope you're doing really great. I hope you're having a great springtime. So I've seen a bunch of these videos. I think they're from TikTok. I don't really use TikTok. I have one, but I don't use it. So I normally get these videos on Pinterest, which I randomly use all of the time now. Um, but it is books that I would actually sell my soul to read for a first time. And I thought it'd be kind of cool to do like a full length video about that. Uh, would I sell my soul? I don't know. That's kind of a lot. I have no problem rereading books too. Like I reread and rewatch stuff all the time. I haven't reread books in a long time, but it's something I used to do frequently when I was a kid. And I rewatch. I have literally watched a movie before and then been like, I'm gonna watch that literally again right now. Like I am crazy about stuff like that. So I have no problem re-listening, rewatching, rereading anything. And in that case, I think it'd be kind of cool to show you books that if I could have that preliminary reading experience again, I can show those to you. And I don't think this is like an exhaustive list, but it's a couple ones. I also have at the end two books, which are not books I would read, I would sell my soul to read, but it's like I would rent my soul for a second chance at falling in love. Like, second chance at a first impression. I'd rent my soul for a second chance at a first impression. And it's sort of something where knowing what I know now, maybe I've read other books since then, maybe I feel like I'm a better reader now, I would love another opportunity to sit down and enjoy them. But I'll still probably reread both of them anyway. And maybe that falling in love moment will happen then. Who knows? Okay, so to start off, we have Braised Pork by Yu. And I thoroughly enjoyed this book. I gave it to a friend to read. She didn't like it as much as I did, but I really enjoyed this. This is one of the first books in my life, in like my adult life, that I was ever able to finish like within 24 hours because I was just like so like drinking this book in. And I would say it is the story of a woman who, after her husband dies, he leaves an image of a man, half fish, and she becomes, in a way, obsessed with this drawing. And she kind of continues through her life. She has to figure out how to live without her husband's salary, but also she goes on this emotional, spiritual journey and discovers something about herself in the process. I think a lot of this is that sense of fascination and pull that art can have on us. I feel like that's described in this book a lot. I also feel like this book has that sense of like when you lose something, your inability to find maybe meaning or direction. I feel that sense in this book. I think it's really well done. I also think there's something very, not necessarily edgy, but there's something kind of romantic and sexy and smoky about this book that I really enjoyed. Now, as I was collecting books for this, I noticed that a lot of the books that I would sell my soul to read again for the first time, I've actually purchased other things by those same authors. So for Braised Pork, I also got Ghost Music, and I'm very excited to have, I'm very excited to have these two sitting next to each other on my red shelf. But I think that's something that's sort of funny to me. It's like, would I sell my soul to read this book again? No, but I would just buy another book by the same author and read that. So always an option for those of you who don't want to sell your soul. After that, let's talk about Strange Weather in Tokyo by Hiromi Kawakami. Now, this is a book about a woman who like meets up with her former teacher many years down the line, and they end up striking something of a romantic relationship. This is a weird book because I really enjoyed it. I had such a good time reading this, but I understand that it's not like, is it a 5-star book? Maybe not, but I just like it so much. And this book describes things in such a particular way. Like, it gave me such a sensation that I was wanting to go out and pursue the things that book made me feel. The book would describe a forest, and I now want to go to that forest. I had a professor talk about this idea of like building tension and then release, like music, it builds tension and then like it hits a particular note. It gets to a particular place and that tension releases. He is also comparing music to orgasms in that way. This book, it's edging me, okay? It's making me really want to go have these little snacks in the little bars that she was having, the salty snacks with a nice refreshing beer. It's making me want to go to these forests and hunt for mushrooms, but I haven't done it yet. I have not released the energy that this book built me up with, you know? And that's what I really like about this book, is that I'm thinking about it all the time. I am frequently imagining myself or desiring to go and release the tension that this book provided. That haven't been said. I have actually read another book by this author. I've read The 10 Loves of Nishino, or I think this is also translated as like The 10 Loves of Mr. Nishino. I don't really like this book that much. I don't like love stories. And whereas the first one, I feel like it was a much more interesting story, like a much more interesting relationship between these two characters, and it was really exploring our protagonist. The second book was, like, I don't think the book is exactly about Nishino, but it's just like cool characters and they're all talking about the same kind of lame guy. Okay, so next on my list is The Dangers of Smoking in Bed, stories by Mariana Enriquez, and this was nominated for the International Booker Prize, I think in 2021. I think this is so well written. It's so interesting and cool. It's these really great, creepy, very modern horror stories, and they're so good and so creepy. Everyone I've let read this book says they're really amazing. I really enjoyed this, but I do want to bring up a point that it does include some transphobic language, and I don't think it does it in like a positive, like this is a good thing to say. I think it's supposed to maybe describe a culture or a community. I think it's attempting not to say like this is good language, but I would be remiss if I did not point that out. You know, not everyone is in a position where they can read that and be upset but let it roll off of them, and so I don't want to suggest this and then, you know, have someone read it who those words really affect them much more than they can ever affect me as a cis person. So it's an amazing book, but please have that knowledge, and if that's a book you have to say no to, of course say no to that book. I do have another book by Mariana Enriquez, and that is Things We Lost in the Fire. And yeah, like I said, I'm buying books based on authors whose works I loved. I don't have it with me because I have lent it out, but it is The Aosawa Murders by Riku Onda. I mentioned this book more in depth in my Japanese lit that I recommend. It's kind of a murder mystery, but it does that really fun kind of Japanese disquieting commentary, life, weirdness that I really love. And by the same author, I have also got Fish Swimming in Dappled Sunlight. I have not read this. Another one on the TBR shelves. My last book that I would sell my soul to read again is A Wife for My Son by Ali Ghalem. I just think this is a really wonderfully well-rounded book. It looks at a woman, her kind of in-law family. I think it has a lot of commentary on women's rights, progressive people in traditional societies. I think it has villain characters who are still well-rounded and fully fleshed out. Even the people who you don't like in this story, you can see them and understand them. And truly, I think that this book, the number of times I had to stop and think, I had no idea where it was going. The friendships and the characters are so well written, and as a woman, I really appreciated this book. I think it's so good at describing these feelings, and I think I mentioned this in a video previously. It is a book that I am amazed about when it was written and the fact it was written by a man, because there are books by women that were written last year that do not have this nuanced portrayal of womanhood that this book has. So absolutely, if you can find this, I found this at at the Book Barn in Connecticut. If you can find this book, read it. It is fabulous. And lastly, my 2 books that, like I said, I would rent my soul for a second chance at a first impression. The first of which is The Boxman by Kobo Abe. So this is about a society of people, Japan, where some people have decided that they will live out of cardboard boxes, but not like they're going to live out of them like their house, like they're going to put them on their head and they're going to become boxmen. And I think it definitely has a conversation about social, I don't say like it talks about society, but it talks about society. It's like a social commentary. Mine got a little bit captured in some Philadelphia rain, so she's looking a bit worse for wear. I was hunting this book down like you would not believe. I literally had to go to Amsterdam to get it because I didn't want to buy it online. But it is very good, but I would love to sit down with it again and get it a little bit more. There's like a murder mystery element to this, or like not a murder, like there's some like thrillerness to this that I think I wasn't expecting, which I should have expected, which then kind of took a turn for me. And last on my list is Lucky Breaks by Yevgenia Belorusets. This is quite short. It is about Donbass post 2014 when Russia attacked Ukraine, and specifically like in eastern Ukraine, such as the Donbass area. And it really describes this the sense of war, the sense of uneasiness that war provides, that lack of solid ground that you get when your world is turned upside down. And this is just a very difficult read. So I think it's a book I'm going to have to read 4, 5, 6 times to be able to feel like I truly grasp it. I also would be interested in reading the original non-translated version to see if they compare, to see if that kind of language is also as confusing in its original, or if that was the function of a translation. Oftentimes other countries can have slightly more complicated sentences than I think are in English literature of this type. So the translation, in being faithful, sometimes maybe becomes a bit more convoluted, and so I would be very interested to do a comparison of the two. But yes, this is Lucky Breaks, and I would love to read this for the first time again, but I'm also just gonna read it for a second time. Well, that was the last of my book under the theme of this video. My final book is going to be my currently reading, which is Time Shelter by Georgi Gospodinov. I had to pause because I kept calling him Grigory instead of Georgi, and that's really funny because my grandfather's name is Georgi, so I should freaking know how to pronounce it. But yes, this was on the long list, still also on the short list for the International Booker Prize. I am very excited about that. I think this is really cool. It talks not only about like kind of this like falling back into your consciousness, a little bit of Alzheimer's, but then almost a cultural Alzheimer's that almost comes into like countries wanting to go back to an identity where they felt more sure of themselves, more confident in who they were. And it's especially, I think, interesting in looking at Eastern European countries or Soviet Eastern Bloc countries because of their relationship to history and time and cultural identity, that sense of, political upheaval, the dangers and just the weird relationship you have to your identity when it has these dark times associated with it, and especially with your youth. I've been really enjoying this. It's just been quite a for some reason I haven't been able to get through it as well, not as well, but as quickly as I wanted to, but it's been a very good read. So after this, I'm going to read one of Kurkov's books, The Gardener from Ochakov, because it also deals with it doesn't deal with the same thing exactly, but in that book someone is going back in time. So whereas this, people are wanting to like pretend like they're like, oh, we want to like relive this decade. In that book, the main character is going back in time, and I think that kind of will have some similar themes to this book, where there is a romanticization of the past, and some kind of blind spots around identity that I think this book is also discussing. So I like this idea of sort of building off of one book to another book, where I think there'll be like a complementary discussion that can be had. So, and with that, I'm going to ask you, what books would you sell your soul to read for the first time? What books did you have a really amazing first time with and you want to share with the world? Please let me know, and yeah, drop your recommendations, and I hope to see you again soon in my next video. Bye.